Hey guys, so welcome to week 7, and now we'll be trying to spend the rest of this course making the last effect in this shot, which is the EMP pulse. So I've been trying to look up some reference for this. So for a start, we can look at the animation I've set up here, which for now is just a proxy anim, but the basic intent is to have these pulses coming out from the drone and traveling along sections of the environment, which should give us an opportunity to add some interaction with the ground and with this car over here and the trees. And the reason I've gone for many pulses is obviously because I'm trying to split the shot into at least one good beat for the first effect, which we've done, and then move on to a good section that'll give us time to see some interesting things happening. So if I just had one, it would be a little bit boring. The other reason I've gone for 3 particular pulses here is twofold, and we could change this later on or add many more. But for starters, I wanted one of them at least to end somewhere around the end of the shot. So that would make sense if the camera sort of maybe did a white out on the last one, as if it was being wiped out by the final EMP blast. And secondly, one of the references I found was from, I think it's this scene from Pacific Rim, which has a pretty interesting EMP that explodes multiple times, similar to this. But just to discuss a little bit more about the reference, I've looked for some art here on ArtStation. Pinterest gave me nothing, and it seems like the bulk of what you'll find is basically the pulse activator itself, so a model for that. And obviously in real life, an EMP pulse is basically just deactivating electronics, and there's no fancy electrical or waves or spheres to go along with that. But we're doing crazy sci-fi, so we're just going to add all of that. And so with that in mind, the only 2 films I could think of that have a pulse that's similar to what we're aiming for is this one from The Matrix. So in The Matrix, when their ship re-enters this environment here, he activates the EMP, and we can go through this frame by frame, and it's pretty basic what they've got, and they're getting away with a lot of stuff. Obviously, I'm not a huge fan of the electrical effect here. It's just kind of all over the place. But here you can also see multiple waves, so if I play this again, it still feels pretty powerful. There's another example from The Matrix, which is from the first Matrix film. And that's a bit slower. Still feels pretty good, but once again, I don't like the electrical aspect of that. So we'd be looking to try and improve that visually. It's just there's small pockets of very high frequency noise, and it just doesn't make sense to look at. It's also changing rapidly every single frame. So if you remember in the previous effect, we spoke a bit about what I would call at least some of the fundamentals of generating an electrical effect. So we'll be trying to apply some of that to this one here as well. And then to jump over to the Pacific Rim reference, let me just play it. So that has a much better electrical animation. It's a little confusing in terms of the leading edge, so it's not spherical, it's more of a flat wave. But it was this one that I saw that made me think to do multiple expanding spheres. Another thing to point out here is they have set up something for anticipation. So we will be looking to do something about that as well. And if I look at my proxy mesh, I've just got the sphere with a noise on it to imply some kind of anticipation effect over there. So we probably won't do a sphere, but we'll need to find some way to anticipate the final explosion. So you can see what they've got here is basically just a leading edge of some noise, probably a volume, and then electrical arcs expanding out from the center, which makes much more sense to me than the matrix ones. Evenly spaced, which also makes sense. And then if we look at it through this camera, it's basically just a good looking noise, super bright as well. And nothing much happens close to the camera because that can be an awkward part to deal with. But I think as long as we replicate some of this electrical stuff and we have an interesting leading edge and obviously a believable reaction in the environment, I think we can take it quite far. So we'll be looking to try and reuse a few of the techniques we've done in the previous effects. So like I mentioned, the electricity would be one. We'll do some particle advection, some shading. So nothing too fancy on the shading front, but we do need some kind of noise on these spheres. Probably a volumetric sim on the environment. And we'll try and add all of those together with maybe a few extra things and see how far we can take this. So I'll see you guys in the next video where I'll take us through the scene setup, which I guess we'll use the same scene we used for our EMP. So the scene's pretty much there, but we'll just lay out exactly what we need to do and break the effects down a bit more. So I'll see you then.